2, 1.
Good afternoon. This is a public hearing of the Chatham Conservation Commission being held on January 12th, 2022, in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Chatham Wetlands Protection Bylaw and Regulations. My name is Bob Rawls and I serve as the chair. Hearings are broadcast live on Channel 18 and are also recorded for the on-demand archives available on the town's website. Please let me know if anyone else is recording this meeting. After today's hearing is being conducted via remote video conference, originally pursuant to the governor's emergency COVID order, and now under an order allowing remote public meetings through April 1st, 2022. The agenda and copies of documents for review today are posted on the town's website. To all participants, after presentations by applicants and/or their representatives, I will normally ask for comments and questions from commissioners, then from any interested parties. Please remain muted unless you are speaking. If you're attending by phone, mute using *6 and use *6 again to unmute. If you're on the Teams platform, indicate that you wish to speak by using the raise hand feature. If you are attending by phone, please unmute with *6 and address the chair. When recognized, please identify yourself for the record. If you're not a commissioner and you're on the Teams platform, please keep your camera turned off unless you are speaking. The commission will vote on each matter by roll call. So that we have a record of a quorum, I'll now ask each commissioner to indicate their presence. Vice Chair Bob Del Vecchio.
Present.
Janet Williams.
Present.
Karen Latin.
Present.
Mary Sullivan.
Present.
Associate Member William Doherty.
Present.
And I'm here, so we do have a quorum. This being the second Wednesday of the month, we must finish today's hearing by 4:30 in order to not conflict with another broadcast on Channel 18. This gives us 3.5 hours to conduct our business so that we can hear every application on the agenda. We may need to limit the time spent on each, which means that those resulting in protracted discussion may need to be continued. I think today's agenda is probably not going to be such that we'll have to do that. Nikki Smith, Chatham's conservation agent, will now lead us through the agenda, including whether any items are being continued.
We do not have any continued items. The first one up is the enforcement order for 271 Forest Beach Road, Andrew Dowson, map 3B, parcel 11, SE 10-3161, noncompliance on an expired order of conditions. So the background on this one is that, much to my new knowledge this morning from Bob Rawls, is that there was a previous enforcement order, which I was not aware of. I thought they were just acting on the old order of conditions that had expired. So they chose, instead of closing that out and doing a certificate of compliance that said the order had expired and filing a new notice of intent, they chose to do the enforcement order route. I did not realize they already had an enforcement order open. So I guess we'll have to talk about that. But they are basically just trying to come in compliance with the Phil Cheney plan from 2020. So I don't know if Tim Nickerson is on the phone able to speak about this, and I will share the Phil Cheney plan.
Good afternoon. I am on the phone and available.
Yeah, so Tim, if you could just give a brief summary of your plans. Are you there, Tim?
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry for that. So for the Dowson residents, I met with Andrew, and I apparently am the new landscaper on board. He's hired me to complete the revegetation plan. That I was not aware of any prior violations or mitigation plans until I met with Nikki, and we went over the expired order of conditions. And so I was under the understanding that we could proceed with the current plan and get him into compliance.
So Phil, you're not aware of the enforcement order then? Tim, I'm sorry, Tim.
Yeah. No, I was not aware of any prior enforcement order. When
Okay.
I met with Nikki, I relayed to the customer what his courses of action would be. And one was the enforcement order, which he relayed to me that he would like to proceed with that. And I got back to Nikki, said, let's go with the enforcement order. And that's where I stand on it, not knowing, as Nikki just stated previously, that there was a prior enforcement order. And I'm ready and willing to get this into compliance ASAP as far as the actual execution of the plan.
Okay, Janet, you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm looking at so this is the enforcement and restoration order that was issued in the summer of 2020. I assume that's what we're talking about. This replanting plan was attached to it. It required that all of that planting be done prior to November of 2020. All planting of trees, shrubs, and seedings shall be completed no later than November 30th, 2020. So, query what happens. This enforcement and restoration order was not complied with. Nikki, did you issue yet? Is there another enforcement order?
So the complicated part of this, which is why this is news to Tim and myself, is that Callie only kept digital records starting around this time. So when I went looking through the paper file, I didn't see an enforcement order. I saw this plan, but I thought it was attached to the previous order of conditions. Callie has, so I found that out around Thanksgiving, and Callie has since downloaded all of her digital copies that she saved on her personal computer on a thumb drive, and she's delivering that to me. So I did not realize there was an open enforcement order that hadn't been complied with. So when I spoke with Tim, this seemed like the best route. You know, the order's expired.
Yep.
Let's just get into compliance. This is kind of just a way to have an open permit type thing to get the planting done. And then Bob pointed out this morning to me that they had the enforcement order that hadn't been complied with, apparently.
Do we know anything about why? I mean, that was issued and it was negotiated and we had plans, and it was issued in June of 2020 requiring planting by November. Do we know what transpired in that time period?
I do not. I don't know. And I had reached out to David Clark, and it was too short of notice for him to go back and look 2 years back into a file to have any meaningful comment, because he's not the contractor on this part of it at this time. He thought it was all wrapped up, but so he didn't feel comfortable commenting without doing research or getting the clients okay on working on this project anymore. So
Okay.
I mean,
So
the site
all of
looks
that aside,
way better than when the enforcement happened.
Yep.
So, I mean, I guess that's a plus. And again, in the email I sent Bob this morning, I'm erring on the side of being non-cynical and saying that they brought this to my attention without me knowing about it. So they're willing to get this done. So let's give them one more chance. I would have a specific date where fines would begin. I would say have plantings in by July 1st. So they have, the spring planting season to get the plants in, and then, I could take a look at them, in the fall and say, they're doing pretty good. You don't need to be fined. Or in the alternate, if it hasn't been done, fines are going to start incurring.
So what this enforcement order will do is attach this revegetation plan to it and require compliance and planting by July. Do I have that right?
Correct. And I also had, I should probably stop sharing just a second. The other conditions, so basically the conditions I had listed for this were a monitoring report showing that the meadow has been installed and show a before and after mowing. So they should mow it pretty soon in the next couple months, and then around that July time, send me some, or when I do my site visit, it should be unmown and show that it's, an actual meadow. And then reseeding the bare areas that are around the property, just ensure that all trees on the planting plan have been installed. And then if a substantial effort to come into compliance with the planting plan has not been done, fines will occur.
Just to make sure I understand something, Nikki, they came to you and you were proceeding on the assumptions they were open orders and conditions, but was the assumption that was associated with an NOI of some kind, or were those associated with what we now know as originally an enforcement order and a restoration order? I mean, are we talking about two separate unfinished sets of things, or just one?
So my original thought was that it was just an open order that expired, and they were just trying to find a way to come into compliance, and they didn't want to work under an expired order. And then it was this morning that I found out that there was the previous enforcement order.
So it's really two separate things then.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Both of which have to be closed out.
Right.
Okay.
Well, we wouldn't close out the expired order of conditions until.
Well, I mean, they have to ultimately be dealt with. They have to be resolved.
Yeah, so we issue this enforcement order, and when it's complied with, then we can close out, I guess, everything. Close out the restoration order and the original order of conditions.
As long as we're covering all the unresolved items in both documents. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, yeah. So I reviewed the documents I could find for the enforcement order, and I didn't see that they really were required to do any more submittals other than just follow this restoration plan that Phil Cheney submitted, which is what I believe Tim Nickerson is basically following. He just became the new person to actually do the work.
Correct.
So as far as you're concerned, we have all the items that need to be resolved.
Yes, I believe so. It's kind of just to have something that says, yes, continue under this permit, get the work done, and then we can close everything out, in the next year or two.
Well,
it's a little convoluted.
Yeah, it is. With the original enforcement order, though, I mean, we're supposed to have it done in a year, right? And I wouldn't necessarily think it's necessary to go 2 more years.
Right. That's kind of why I was saying, make sure the plantings are in by July. Then I'll check them again in the fall, make sure they seem to have survived the summer, and then we can kind of go from there.
All right. So what's the actual action here? Just to issue.
Yeah,
Well, I
so
would
just
suggest-
issue
yep.
the enforcement order with those conditions that I read previously, which I can do again.
No, that's okay. That's okay. All right.
Okay.
In the past, I don't know, is that something we need to vote on? In the past, when, you know, your predecessor would always have us sign those enforcement orders.
I mean, there's two options. There's one that I can do immediately and send out, and then you guys would ratify it and then come back and sign it.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
just to expedite the process so that they can get their permit issued, but we can also just, at this point, if you just ratify it, I can have it in the Dropbox for anyone to sign. Because I don't think they're gonna start, planting anytime soon, so.
I think we actually have done both, where the enforcement order is signed by the agent and ratified by the commission when it's not a complicated, it's just to come into compliance. And we switched to using the more complex enforcement and restoration order, where there was some kind of restoration that looks more like the kind of activity that's in an order of conditions. So that's a kind of a hybrid document. But since we could just, the requirements are in there, we could issue an enforcement order and say, reinforce the restoration order, or just attach the plan, since that's what essentially that restoration order did. We kind of created this little bit of this complication ourselves by developing the restoration and enforcement order.
Right. Well, so maybe it's you make the call, Nikki, on what you think is
Yep.
the most manageable approach.
I would say in this case, since they're not going to start planting within the next week or two, you'll have time to come in and everyone sign it, and I think it's cleaner that way. And then we can mail it out instead of just me being the one that signs it.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
So
So
Bob,
I will put that form to sign, let's say Monday.
Okay, so should we just extend this enforcement order then till July 1st? Or not?
So I would vote to ratify the new enforcement order,
Okay,
and I'll look into the old one and make sure all those conditions are included on the new one. So we would vote to ratify the new enforcement order and including the existing planting plan.
okay.
okay, so I move to issue a new enforcement order for 271 Forest Beach Road with the existing planting plan.
Latin second.
Okay. Roll call vote. Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
and I vote aye.
All right. So next up, we have the request for a field change. This was a continuance from a prior hearing. 21 Little Beach Road, the Michaela Realty Trust, Kimberly A. Chipman, trustee, map 16A, parcel 21H8, SE 10-3331. Move the previously approved wall-mounted HVAC and generator. Bad for your hearings. I don't know if you want to share your plans. I have them up if you want me to, but I know you sometimes
That would
like to
be
do it
great.
yourself.
Yeah, I can go either way.
I mean, I'll have you do it then, so you can show which plan you want.
All right. I was there a moment ago. There's Teams. So for the record, Thad Eldridge, East Southeast. Sharing a screen. So we've provided more detail on exactly what we're requesting. So hopefully everybody got a copy of the letter that we sent, and we included highlights of everything. On the north side of the building, there were 3 HVAC units or 2 HVAC units and 1 generator proposed. And now they're being proposed behind the building. A fence is proposed to enclose that. This is several feet above the ground, so it's not expected to be an issue for animal migrations. In the back of the building, the original deck had a very small set of stairs, and the proposal is to increase that width. Behind the building, coming off of the raised lawn, which is actually the septic system, the old stairs were going to come straight down into Windmill Terrace, and the proposed stairs are going to come at an angle. Because the wall is so tall, some sort of railing is required, and a fence has been proposed. And then the stairs at the rear are going to be turned to face back towards the driveway. We had discussed the mitigation that we're proposing is going to be in a strip of land that's owned by Mr. Chipman, where the trust is controlled by Mrs. Chipman. When we had done the original permit, the dewatering area was located in this strip as well. So it's not a new area coming into the permit. We've provided a change in the number of plants and the species type. So we're getting a little bit of variation in there. And if there are questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay. We'll just open it up to commissioners. And that would be Janet.
Thanks, Bob. Thad, the mitigation plans that are listed here, are these new that are going just to being added to the prior mitigation plans, or is this a combination of prior plus new proposed?
So when we first proposed this, we weren't required mitigation because areas were staying the same or decreasing a little bit.
No.
We had proposed beach plum up against the wall. That's been changed out to bayberry, but that's more of landscaping, so really can't count towards mitigation. The proposed mitigation is going along this strip where there's a lawn.
Right.
I believe that Commissioner Delvecchio had asked for a metal edging along that, so we're happy to put that in.
Okay. Okay, I think I've got that. And the fence, so there's 2 fences. The one around the generator and air conditioning units, is that the one that you referred to as being several feet off the ground?
Both of them are several feet off the ground.
How does that work? I know that the units are raised, they're sitting on a raised platform, right? So what is the fence attached to if it's several feet off the ground?
Oh no, the fence will be at ground level.
Ah, okay.
The units will project above it. The Chipmans are very happy to have some grandchildren who will be playing on this lawn, and they just want to keep them safe and away from those units.
Okay. And it just, as the plan shows, that the fence just basically tightly surrounds those units and doesn't go anywhere else.
Correct. And we also have the fence that will be on top of the wall.
Okay, can you describe that for me?
So under the building code, some sort of railing has to be there because we're much more than 30 inches above the adjacent grade. A vinyl fence was proposed by the architect and it never made it to the previous filing. And so now we're back here to put in a picket type of fence.
What will the height be?
I believe 3 feet
3 feet above the top of the wall.
above the top of the wall. They don't want to lose their view, but they do want to meet the required railing.
Okay.
That wall's for the septic system, right?
It is.
Yeah, a raised septic system, and so they're doing the retaining wall around it. Okay.
Right. There's a substantial retaining wall that's around it.
What's the height of that retaining wall?
Feet, 5 feet, 6 feet?
So the total is somewhere around 9 feet with the
Yeah.
fence on top?
Yes.
Hmm.
Not
Okay.
at all an abnormal circumstance for this neighborhood. Everybody seems to be going up.
Yep, for good reason. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, Bob.
I just want to focus on the mitigation again, if I could. We suggested maybe some signage. Is that in there?
We did add a note to put a sign at each end.
Okay, I see that now, yeah. All right. Good enough. That's all I had. Thank you.
I don't see other hands. I guess I'm not sure if I'll say this. I said it last time, I'm still concerned about the fact that mitigation is on not the subject property. I understand the logic behind it. I understand why the applicant and representatives want to do it that way. And I understand it's owned by the same person, but we know that things happen, we know that things change. And so if it were to happen that went into someone else's ownership, what obligation would there be to maintain that or keep it?
That would run with the land. So
How
I mean,
would that be conveyed though? Because the documentation that we would issue would be associated with the subject property.
we can push an easement license.
Just wondering what sort of vehicles would work, conservation restriction, I don't know.
An easement
Something.
would work. An
An
easement, would-
Okay,
An
all right.
easement would work.
as long as it's recorded and it's part of the record and it references the mitigation.
A conservation easement,
Yeah.
essentially.
No, just an easement from one property to the other.
Correct.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, as long as there's something that tips people off that's doesn't just go away because they bought it.
Yeah, I mean, you can record it under both properties. Well, this is a field change, so that's not quite this. Sorry, I'm thinking out loud. Yeah, I'd have to, because it's a field change and not an order, so it's not getting recorded anywhere. It's just going to be something in our files.
But if we have
Yeah, I
an
don't know,
easement
Thad,
that
do you
goes
have the-
from him to her for the mitigation there, then it links everything together.
That one would be recorded.
Yes.
I'm sorry, you got a little fuzzy there at the beginning. Say it again, please.
If we have an easement that goes from this property to the other,
Mhm.
then there's the trail that you're looking for.
Yeah.
And things will be fine.
So you grant an easement from from the subject property to this property. Is that, I mean, I don't know how you would normally, how would you phrase it?
That's
properly?
right.
Yeah, okay.
A little
then-
sketch of this property showing where that mitigation area is, and then an easement from Mr. Chipman to Mrs. Chipman with, you have an easement for this mitigation.
And so we can make a special condition that you would do that.
That's fine. And I mean, if it makes you feel better, obviously the mitigation has to survive the 3 growing seasons. And once you have naturalized plantings there, if they were to sell and somebody cut them down, it doesn't, even if it's cutting down mitigation area or cutting down native plants, you still have enforcement action against them.
All right. So we'll put some language then in the order condition or
No
somewhere.
change.
Field change them, yeah. All right, can we do that, Nikki?
Yeah, I mean, it'll basically be a letter that says,
A letter, okay.
yeah, I need to see some sort of documentation that there's going to be an easement. the plantings still have to do the normal growing seasons, that sort of language.
Okay. That's really my only concern. The rest of it seems understandable and straightforward to me. So anybody else have any other questions, concerns? And if not, with the proviso that we'll have that easement letter, Bob, I think we can have a motion.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the field change for 21 Little Beach Road.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
and I vote aye. That is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have our notices of intent. The first one is 33 Whistler's Lane, Maureen Goheen, map 16J, parcel 30A-10A. I do not have an SC number written down, but they may have gotten one at this point. I'll double check. Removal of septic system, additions to dwelling and hardscape.
Good afternoon again, Thad Aldridge, East Southeast. And I can share once again. So the Goheens have repurchased this house that they owned once upon a time. And they're now looking to make some reasonable additions. Most of those additions are located outside of the 100-foot buffer with a proposed garage. There is work going on within the 50 to 100. The proposed, starting off with the resource areas, we have a marginal coastal bank located to the east. There's also a marginal coastal bank located to the southwest of Locust, which we can't see here. Both of those were formed when tennis courts were installed and the land was graded out. Nevertheless, we've held the setbacks from it. To the south, we have land subject to coastal storm flowage. And to the south and to the east, there are wetlands, but we're outside of those buffers. So with the proposal, the house is kind of a split level, and they're trying to make things a little more normal. I don't know if anybody noticed the number of steps to get into the house, but they would like to raise the grade in front so that they have fewer steps to get into the building itself. The proposed septic system will be in the way, and so a new septic system is proposed behind the building where there are more suitable soils. There's a good lobe of silt loam out here. And we've shown on the plan the overdig that was done back in the 80s for the septic system. But because we're raising in front of the house, the driveway is going to be steeper than comfortable for crushed stone. We're proposing to pave it and put in a trench drain that will then go to a leaching pit within the location of the old septic system. For the mitigation, we've offered a bit more than required because it's in a view easement, so we can't propose very tall mitigation. And so we've increased that area by about 1.5. And obviously taking the septic system out of the 50 to 100 is a benefit. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Thad. Looking for hands. Oh, Mary.
I just had, I did take a quick look at the property. I didn't see any markings for where the garage is being added. But I am curious as to, right now, it obviously is not a steep slope down to the driveway. I understand you're adding fill, so it will be steeper as outlined in your plans. But is there no other option besides putting in asphalt? You couldn't have
a few different options, and even if we were to put a pervious surface in, the clay, we're not sure where the clay picks up exactly. We know that there's some decent material behind the garage. The test hole that was run in the 80s near Whistler's Lane showed a good 8-10 feet of silt loam. So even if we put in a pervious surface, I don't think very much is going to get into the ground. And I'll share that the garage was not staked because it's outside the 100.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Is that all, Mary?
Yes, that's
Oh,
that's all.
Okay, all right. Anyone else? Bob?
Yeah, I had a couple of things. Thad, the proposed drainage area, and you have trench drains. What are those trench drains like? It's like it's like what is it?
So-
Is it stone to the surface?
No, it would be a big gutter in the ground made out of concrete with a grate on top of it. So they're
Okay,
8 inches, 12 inches of metal where all the water can get in. And then the half pipe basically that leads to the low point and then would be transported by pipe out to the leach pit.
okay. How about, did you consider putting in a rain garden where that drainage pit is?
So when we can talk to the client.
Excuse me, I didn't hear you.
We can certainly talk to the client about a rain garden. Not sure if the grades will allow for it. Yeah, no, your grade out there is about 23 where the pit's going, and your trench drain is going to be at elevation 2019. So there's a 4-foot difference. We'd really have to drop the grade there in order to get a rain garden to work.
Is it in a play area? Probably not then, huh? Is it gonna be
No.
is it gonna be to grade, that drainage area?
No, that drain is going to be below grade because we have to get gravity from the trench drain down to the leach pit.
So it's kind of gonna be like a safety issue then, huh? Because it's gonna be like a low area right in the lawn.
Right, if we were to put in a rain garden, it would be deeper. It would be about 4 feet deep, which is not optimal for a rain garden.
Yeah, nothing around the pit then. You could plant around the pit.
So the pit itself would be subgrade.
Yes. But up near the surface, up where the grade is more flat.
The proposal would be lawn, Cape Cod lawn, just as it is today.
Okay, and the meadow, where would the meadow be located?
So we put it in the corner, a number of plants right up against the lawn, and then a meadow nestled in the middle of it.
Yeah,
Mm.
way in the back corner, yeah.
And again, we were looking for what's the most meaningful mitigation that we can put in out here. It's to expand area that's already, it was all part of a land management plan around here that Wilkinson Ecological ran.
Is that meadow gonna be, is there gonna be like a mow path around that meadow, or is it gonna be up against some other plants, or?
Everything out here has been up to the edge of the lawn was part of a land management plan, so it should all be native.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary, is that a new hand of yours?
Yeah, can I ask one more
Sure,
question?
sure, sure.
Which is, yeah, I'm assuming, and I know it's outside the 100, the holly tree and the cedar tree are both being removed for the new building that are currently there?
The ones in the backyard. Everything back here would be removed.
So, okay, so are there going to be any trees added?
We're not removing any trees within jurisdiction, so we weren't proposing any trees.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mary. Let's see. Oh, Janet, you have another question?
I do, thank you. That on the site plan, so if the purple line is showing the connection from the trench drain to the leach pit, and then there are two other points that are connecting to the leach pit from the corner of the patio and from the corner of the porch.
So,
What's happening at that intersection where they intersect the patio and the porch? What is that?
well, the roof runoff from.
Ah, it's the roof runoff. There,
Since we're putting in a pit, we might as well catch everything. We also have two dry wells proposed up to the north of the building.
where are those?
Is that coming through?
Yep. Oh, I see. From there. Okay. And will these be dry wells as well down at these 2 points?
So these two would be little dry wells because there's not a lot of roof runoff to pick up.
Yeah, little dry wells.
Little dry wells. The pit that's going in where the septic system is a full 6x6 pit with 4 feet of stone.
Okay.
So more what you would expect during a road construction project, but it's picking up most of the roof area and all of the driveway area.
And okay, and just to reiterate what you were saying, do I have this right? That leach pit is actually up gradient of the trench drain that's going to catch the runoff at the bottom of the driveway?
Well, the ground is up gradient from the bottom of the driveway. The leach pit will be buried.
Right. So it has to be buried to a depth sufficient so that gravity can work to move that water.
Yes, but the septic system that was installed here in the 80s, they have good sand there, all the way down to where the naturally occurring sand is.
Got it.
So
Makes good sense to put it there then. Thank you.
I didn't want to make a new overdig.
Is that it, Janet?
Yep, that's it. Thank you.
All right. So you mentioned that there's a view easement. Is that on the plan, or can you describe where it is?
So that is not appearing with this color.
Okay. And that's a view easement for an adjacent property or something like that? Oh, okay, got it. All right. So obviously they wouldn't want to put tall stuff to affect their own view over the other side of the property, so I get it.
I see.
They're happy with the trees that they have. So I mean, there's no proposal to take down any of the trees between the house and the salt pond.
Yeah, we're always looking for opportunities there, but yeah, I see why it's a stretch. So the mitigation area, the proposed mitigation area, I think Bob asked about this or mentioned them protecting it, and we're always interested in protecting mitigation areas. It's this area is way down at the corner of a long property. Just it strikes me that'll be sort of potentially forgotten about. And I don't know what the nature of the invasives are outside that fence on their property or outside their property, but I don't suppose but even if it's good now, it might not be good later. So the question is, should we incorporate a mow strip. Okay, let me back up a little bit. You're saying that there's a previous mitigation area. Sort of tell me where the previous mitigation area is. That all beyond the property line?
No, there was a voluntary land management plan done up to where the edge of the lawn is.
From when you say up to the edge, from inside the property or from outside the property? Oh, okay, I got it. Oh, okay, so that's that whole part there. Okay, I got it. So the new mitigation area is contiguous with that older.
Correct.
Older mitigation area. Okay, got it. And there's nothing delineating it as far as I can tell. There is a fence, but it looks like the fence doesn't correspond with the boundaries of that mitigation area.
No.
So one doesn't really know unless one knows that that's mitigation. So, all right.
I mean, would you want a metal strip up against the edge of the lawn?
Well, I mean, I think it's not a bad idea. It's even if it's Cape Cod lawn, it helps. It helps draw visual attention to the fact that it's something you want to protect.
Just FYI.
Maybe one of your commissioners would know, how long does a metal strip last in the foggy, salty environment?
Oh, I think an aluminum strip will last a long time. You don't want to put iron strips, but Mary?
Just FYI, I mean, that whole area, especially where the tennis court is, which I know is a separate property on the right, I mean, it's all naturalized. I don't know that a strip is, in my opinion, I don't know that it's
Well,
like a clear-cut lawn area versus mitigation area, but
I think that I think that was wondering whether or not a strip between the Cape Cod lawn and this new mitigation area would be useful. And I don't know. I always think it's useful, but I don't know if it's strictly necessary in this particular case. You going to show us something else?
I always prefer to have a demarcation of whether it's boulders, metal fencing, single rail fence, something like that. I always like to have some sort of demarcation between lawn and mitigation.
But Thad was drawing a circle around the previous mitigation area, and it looks like some of that is where the current Cape Cod lawn is. If my recollection is correct. So that does not appear to be mitigation anymore. Is that a true statement or not?
No, it was a voluntary land management plan.
Land management plan, okay.
And so it wasn't mitigation. And where they ended that land management plan is where the edge of the lawn is now.
Okay. I would have to go back and take a look, but my recollection is it was just sort of Cape Cod lawn all the way down to the fence. But anyway, it was voluntary. That's fine. So anyway, Nikki's in favor of edging. I'm in favor of edging. So Janet.
Just a quick clarification question. That is this proposed mitigation area within the land management area, or is it adjacent to it?
It's adjacent to it. So it's within the current lawn, outside of the previous land management area.
Okay, and so this, but it bumps up against it. It abuts it. Okay, and then the edge the side that is on the property side is adjacent to the lawn.
Right. I mean, the current lawn is out to here.
Yep.
And we'll put in the mitigation, and the new lawn will.
Gotcha. Okay. And then I think a demarcation of some sort definitely makes sense because bordering the lawn. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else with questions, comments? Bob again.
Hey, just one quick thing. The patio, what kind of material is that, Tad?
We specified it to be dry laid, and we mentioned that in the,
Okay, thank you.
we will add that to the plan, just to get it in there. I mean, only a little bit is within jurisdiction, but it would be good to make it as pervious as possible.
Okay, thanks.
I think it was mentioned somewhere that it's dry laid, but I can't remember where.
It is in the narrative.
So, did your hand a new hand come up, Bob, or I thought it looked like one just popped up?
Yeah, no, I was just playing with the hand.
Playing with the hand, okay. Well, we all have to entertain ourselves, I guess.
I'm having
Okay.
fun drawing on this PDF, so.
All right, so if without, it sounds like the only thing that we have focused on is perhaps some sort of edging between the proposed mitigation area and the Cape Cod lawn. Anything else that I'm not remembering? I think that's about it. So given that, I think we're ready for a motion.
So I'm thinking it could go to the work session, correct, in February?
It would seem,
February
yeah.
2nd? Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we continue 33 Whistler's Lane to the work session on February 2nd for an order of conditions.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
and I vote aye, so that is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next notice of intent is 1038 Main Street, Kendrick Corners Condominium, map 12F, parcel 10D-X38A. This one does not have an SE number, so we cannot close the hearing today. This is for removal of a construction or removal and construction of a storage building.
Hello again, Thad Aldridge, Southeast, broadcasting from 1038 Main Street. So this property has been in my family for over a century. And we've had a barn out here since the late 80s, and it's now time to replace that barn. The building itself has 6 apartments. The proposal will include putting in 6 storage lockers for those units, and then the office space will have space. Some of the equipment and the bounds that we store outside, we'll be putting those inside. So starting off with the resource area, we have Perch Pond, also known as Perched Pond or Newty Pond. There's a wetland adjacent to that. There's some good cat and nine tails. There's some decent species in there, but there are also a lot of invasives, especially when you get into the swamp on the north side. So with the proposal, we do have a bit of driveway that will be going in to access the garage. To meet the stormwater management standards, excuse me, we're proposing a bathtub very similar to the Agway project, so that we can get the sand and other debris out of the water before discharging it into the wetland. And we're also proposing some pussy willows and hazelnuts. Those are specifically proposed in the area that's going to be sequestered. The moment that sediment forebay goes in, it's going to be harder to get around over there. So we don't expect to need demarcation. The last bit of tree, the big maple that was out there, that's in sad shape. We'd like to take it before it goes. There is a multiflora rose that's back there that we just like to cut and let the winterberry that's next to it kind of do its thing. And otherwise, I think that's about it. If there are questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, Thad. Yeah, I didn't pick up on the fact that this was. No wonder the narrative has such loving language concerning the trees as over the years. So now I get it.
I don't
Maybe
know
I'll
if you ever saw the tree when it was in its glory. Oh, it was massive. I mean, it was.
Yeah, it looks like it certainly was a specimen. Yeah. Maybe I'll start since I'll just take my turn in the barrel here. So what precipitated the interest in having the Forebay?
So this is not a single-family residential structure, and therefore filing with the Conservation Commission requires meeting the stormwater management standards. For redevelopment, that is the best possible. Given that they're all Class C and D soils out here, we're not going to be leaching anything into the ground. So the next best thing is clean up the water before it gets into the wetland.
So it's related to stormwater management regulations more than conservation.
Right, but it's the filing of the notice of intent that triggers the stormwater.
Okay.
management.
Okay. All right. There is a retaining wall, a new retaining wall, I guess, proposed behind the shed. Is
Yes.
that correct? Is that correct? And I couldn't quite. I don't know if I saw a rationale for what. I mean, you're replacing the shed in its current footprint, as I understand it.
So there will be 6 lockers placed on the west side of the shed.
Oh, I see. I see.
So we want to flatten that out a little bit just so that people can get to it, get their things in and out.
Walk up to the lockers. Now I get it. Okay. All right. So then further down the slope of the behind the shed, it's Cape Codish lawn, I guess. And then it goes quite a ways in that corner of the yard.
Mhm.
Does it lead to something, or in other words, why is that maintained in a mowed state? And it seems like some of that mowed state was within what on your map is referred to as a inland conservancy district. Yes, thank you. And even all the way perhaps into the ICD. I'm sorry, into the BVW, but I couldn't tell. I'm just curious why that's maintained.
It's just been there forever, and
Okay. So it doesn't really lead to anywhere. It's not particularly used for anything.
no, we used to have a dock that went out into the pond, so we had a path that went through. But otherwise, it's just the lawn area that my father walks his dog out there, and
Okay, so it's used
yeah.
to some extent as a lawn.
With the 6 apartments, we do have some use that happens out here. You may have seen the picnic table with the grill on it.
Mm-hmm.
And a little boy that lives in one of the apartments, and he runs around out there. And throughout the pandemic, my own children have been at the office quite a bit. And,
okay, so it's a recreational area.
yeah.
I was just wondering whether or not there's a way to reclaim some of that for the wetland there.
We had originally considered putting the mitigation in this back corner, and but then when we looked at this open area, the moment you take out that tree, we want to get something in there. I mean, the greatest concern right after the first branch fell, Billy Bates, who used to be on the commission, came by and looked at it and said, "Oh, you want to get something in there before invasives start to take over." And I looked out over at the multiflora rose, and over here, there's a major stand of Japanese knotweed and several other invasives throughout. It's like, well, they're kind of already here, but we do want to get some natives established in there to make sure that we fight back against those non-natives.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, it's a big project to do the whole pond, as you know.
Oh yes. Which
So I couldn't quite follow. I mean, you have a long narrative where you talk about this tree and that tree, and so as best I can tell, I'm a little unclear on how many trees are being removed, but I think it's a little more clear in the fact that you're planting 4 hazelnuts or filberts and 2 pussy willows. Is that accurate? Because that's in the
Correct.
planting table.
And as far as the trees, this past year, we lost one more piece of the cherry that's just off of the garage. And we also lost a cherry tree out by the drainage swale for the town. We were going to submit those to the Conservation Commission, but then this was pending, so we wanted to get it into the record that these trees came down on their own. There's one branch of the choke cherry off the garage that remains, proposed to remain. And the other one had to be taken down because that landed in our parking lot.
Yeah. So I guess my overall comment is I had a hard time following which trees are coming out and where they are.
And the proposed tree to come out is just that really long.
Just the one.
It's just the one.
Just the one. Okay. That is, I didn't quite, I wasn't getting that from the narrative, but we can make a note of that. That is the only tree. Right. I think that I don't have any other questions. Anybody else? Bob.
Yeah, I got a couple. Thad, the the area where you're proposing to plant the new trees, where the big, the other tree, the horizontal tree lean across the ground there is going to be removed. Is there enough space spacing in between those plants? I know you have the swamp maples up against the brush there.
There should be. Everything will just grow in together.
Okay, and are you planning to treat that multiflora rose after it's flush cut?
We can certainly get somebody in here to treat it. We were just planning on cutting it back and just attacking it that way.
Yeah, I think it's gonna grow back pretty quickly, I think. I know it's right up against that maple there too.
Yeah.
The drainage area, Forebay, whatever it's called there, so it's gonna be sunk into the ground, correct? So there's gonna be a depression there?
Part of it will be sunk into the ground and part of it will be exposed.
Okay. Is that kind of a safety issue coming off the parking lot like that? If someone were to walk into it?
It's less than 30 inches high, so under the code, it should be fine. It is downhill from the parking lot.
Yeah, I would suggest you put some posts there or something, just so it's, so no one walks, especially at night if they were, around their car and so forth. I think it would be safer to put some posts there or a guardrail of some kind right in front of it.
And this is also where the dumpster is, so that kind of stops people. And the berm that's along the back of the parking lot is pretty exaggerated.
Well, rather be safe than sorry. I think I would recommend putting something there. Let's see, what else did I have? The apron coming off the new garage, that's going to be impermeable, and that's because of the slope there.
So everything to about halfway into the office, it's all clay out here.
Okay.
So it's what are we really going to protect? We want to be able to get a vehicle in and out of here and get our equipment in and out. So we'd prefer it to be paved, much like the rest of the driveway.
Right, okay. And
We have some
the,
stone parking areas that do as well as they do, but you know, we have different equipment that we're bringing in and out.
yeah. And the proposed landscape tie wall right behind the new structure.
Mhm.
That's just because of the grade change.
Right, everything drops down in the back, and we want people to be able to conveniently access their lockers coming in the side.
Okay. I think that's all I had really. But I would recommend putting something in front of that drainage area, just for safety's sake. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Janet?
Thanks, Bob. While we're talking about the sediment forebay, what is the source of where is the sediment coming from? That if the berm around the parking lot, and it is substantial, so where is the sediment being transported from?
Primarily, it's sanding from the wintertime.
That's deposited onto the parking lot?
Right. So they
Okay,
put the sand down on the parking lot during the winter, and then it all washes down here. And,
Gotcha.
and there has to be at least 2 yards of material that's built up down there.
and so how will this forebay function to capture and hold that sand and the storm water?
It's been sized to capture the first inch of rainfall, and then it leaks out, and the sediments will remain behind. And then we'll go out there periodically. We've provided a table of the inspections, and then we clean it out. We'll take the material off site because there's nowhere on site to dispose of it.
Okay, so the same kind of maintenance that we saw before with the Agway one, and
It's
cleaned out periodically. Okay.
just about copy and paste.
I know it's been there a long time, but I'm wondering whether any thought was given to, I know that you explained in your alternatives analysis that the garage couldn't be relocated over to the side lawn outside of the 50. I mean, the garage is the storage room is primarily in the 50, even in the 25, because that area on the side is used for parking. My question is, was there any consideration given to switching those two and putting the storage shed on the side outside of the 50, and then having a pervious parking area, a stone parking area where the shed is currently located?
So the original plan out here, the approved site plan by the planning board, included parking everywhere. With this proposal, we do have to go back to the planning board and have an amended site plan review, and we're going to decrease the amount of parking provided. But originally, the front, all of this was parking, all of this is parking, and even where the barn was placed was parking.
Mm-hmm.
We do
Okay.
use the parking out on the lawn on occasion, when we have larger events, or for the 4th of July, because everybody parks here anyhow.
Right. But still, the question is, what did you guys consider pulling the shed out of the 50 and putting it in the side yard and using that location where the shed currently is for parking, for the overflow parking?
No,
It would me to be a net benefit, and it would be a sort of a form of mitigation to get a structure out of the no disturb zone and put pervious parking there instead.
it may be, but this works with our flow. And additionally, the parking requirements for the building are much more than the number of spaces we have now. I don't think we'd be able to fit enough parking over here to meet the requirements.
Now, just looking at your site plan, it looks roughly the same square footage as that stone parking area that's over on the side yard.
So on the approved plan, we had a full parking lot that was located out closer to the street.
Look at that, parking everywhere. The whole thing.
Parking everywhere.
Well, those were the days. That's before people started realizing the error of doing such things.
Well, a lot of this was set up as grass parking, and if it was going to be used, it would be paved over with a dustless material. But we had grass parking all over. And the trouble is it's based upon the planning board requirements and their parking calculations where under the old plan, it was 31 parking spaces that were required.
Okay. Okay, so I take it that what you're saying is that you strongly prefer not to move that storage shed out of its location.
Correct.
Okay, I hear that. All right, just. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Janet. Yeah, I see where you're coming from, Janet, and it is a logical an idea to move that out of the resource area. It certainly is. But I'm a little confused about the parking spaces that you say that there's a requirement for more parking spaces than you have now.
Yes.
And how is that happening?
So under the approved plan, we were only required to construct the parking spaces that were constructed in the back, the 2 in the front. Then we had grass parking located on the Queen Anne Road side. Under the approval, those grass spaces were to be paved if they were used to the point where they destroyed the grass. And that was the same with the grass spaces back where the barn is now.
Okay, so so after that, a barn was put in where some of the parking spots are.
Correct.
Okay, I guess that's something out of our jurisdiction as to what you're required to have and what you do have and what you did to try to get in compliance. But
And I mean, candidly, we're underutilizing the office space. And under the planning board rules with parking, it's based upon the number of square feet in the area. And if we had the 20 odd employees that could fit in the space, we would need that many more parking spaces.
What about zoning? Sarah had mentioned that you have to reapply with them.
So zoning board of appeals, the ICD was mentioned, the Inland Conservancy District, which is a zoning feature, not a conservation feature, even though it says conservancy. The setback requirement is 25 feet. The building itself is less than 25 from it. If we were to rebuild the barn in the same exact 3D footprint, we wouldn't need zoning. But we want to raise things up a little bit so that we get the right pitch from the door down. So that triggers a zoning board of appeal review.
So are you going to need a dimensional variance then to put that 19 feet?
No, that should be a special permit.
Okay.
so I keep coming back to Janet's, from a conservation perspective, reasonable question: why couldn't be put where the stone parking is? And I want to make sure I hear your answer, and that is that you prefer not to.
That's part of it. The other part is we do, in order to abide by the planning board regulations, we need to have the ability to put in 30 odd parking spaces out here. We're not going to get it if we take away the lawn back here. We are going to get we're gonna better meet the requirement with a parking area located out by Queen Anne Road.
If you ever choose to add those parking places, which,
Right, if all of a sudden commercial space and office space picks up and we need, we have that much use, then we would need the parking to support that.
mhm. So in that case, the barn, if you did relocate it, would be surrounded by parking spots.
I mean, that could be based upon that. We would aim for, for the lawn area between Old Queen Anne and Main Street first. I mean, that was a considerable number of parking spaces there.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is kind of a sticky wicket a little bit because, it's our obligation to try to get, when things change or added to or whatever, to get them out of resource areas. You understand that. So that's what we're trying to, that's why we're, at least that's why I'm keep coming back to this. And so, I'm not hearing a rationale for objecting to that from a conservation perspective is all that compelling. So it is a bit of an issue.
I mean, alternatively, if we rebuilt the barn in the same footprint without
Right.
putting a driveway to it, we would be here under an administrative review.
That's correct. But you're not.
True. We're trying to better a situation. We're also trying to get people's stuff out of sight. So putting a barn out on the street side of everything, I don't see how that would be beneficial to the town through HBDC and planning board.
Oh, sure. They might not prefer it that way. I agree. But their goals are different than ours. But you have to go before them, we think.
We do. We have to go before all four boards, the HBDC, the ZBA, planning board, and conservation.
Wow. Okay.
All for a little barn.
All for a little barn. Yeah. So I don't know, where does that leave us? Janet, do you have any ideas? And is this something that you feel that we should?
I have to think about it some more. I take Thad's point that if they were doing a reconstruction in exactly the same dimensions, that we wouldn't be pushing for this. I haven't been coming at it, thinking about it in terms of requiring it. I was hoping that I could just maybe probe a little bit and see if they had considered that. I take the point about having the shed open and in sight in that very prominent location at that quite prominent corner, which may run into real problems with some of the other boards. What are your dates, Thad, for these upcoming hearings? Have you filed in all of these?
I've not filed with anybody else but you.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Lucky us.
We always get to go first.
We were waiting on some architectural details to be able to file with the HBDC.
Okay. Why is the architectural design changing of the barn?
Not substantially, but it was, what are the doors going to be made out of? What are the finishes going to be? And they were just the final decisions of those.
Out of curiosity, did you not need to get planning board approval when you put it there in the first place, since you were taking some of those assigned parking areas?
It was a different time.
Okay, it was indeed.
So no, there was no planning board approval.
Okay.
Even when
North.
we went in the early 90s and went from 5 residential units to 6, there was no planning board approval required.
Okay.
And nor was, but there maybe should have, maybe there was a conservation review required.
There was back in the 80s
Mhm.
when the project was proposed.
Wait, when the shed went in?
No, when the building went in back. in
Right, when the whole planning thing was up, but when you built the shed, you didn't need conservation, you didn't need an order then?
I'm not sure, but I don't believe so.
Can't imagine why not.
You would, it would seem that you would. Karen, do you have an illuminating thought on all
Well,
this?
I have a little bit of a thought. I don't know if it's possible. If you moved the shed forward toward the driveway and to the left toward the property line, you would get it at least out of the 25. Is that possible?
So the 25 is a zoning setback.
Right. But at least it would be a little further away from everything. I mean, it's not perfect, but if you moved a little over toward the left and then forward, at least, I don't know. I mean, I totally get what Janet and Bob are talking about. I don't know if it helps.
Anyone else? Nikki, any thoughts on your part?
Yeah, so I was just about to actually chime in.
Please.
I definitely see the point of getting it out of the 50, 100%. My goal is always to get things out of the 50, but it's basically going in its same footprint. So my thing is always what environmental harm is it causing to do this project? And I'm not seeing anything specific that pops out. I mean, moving it could almost be argued that it's causing more harm.
Right.
Just because of disturbance area and that kind of thing. But I mean, again, I 100% agree that everything should always try to be moved at least out of the 50 if possible.
Yeah, and there's also the little wrinkle that perhaps it shouldn't have been there in the first place. So it keeps percolating in my head. How long has it been there,
Yeah.
Thad?
It was moved there back in the 80s.
In the 80s, okay.
It was after 85 and before 90. So
Yeah, it's in that gray zone.
even in the
Perhaps it
record,
shouldn't.
I went back to the planning board to get a copy of the final site plan, and in their file they had a number of site plans from across the street. Well, from 88, 89. And then we finally found this one and confirmed that the one in my record and that we had scanned in was the actual approved site plan.
Okay. Well, anyway, I understand what Nikki is saying, and that your project probably does not introduce additional harm to the environment. It would be nice. It would be even more beneficial to the environment if you could see a way to move it. But I hear that you have your reasons for wishing not to do that. So, any other comments, thoughts? What we have in terms of, we have let's see, some suggestions from Bob in terms of the fence marking off the forebay, and treating the multiflora after flush cutting.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't know if you need a permit for that, or how does that work?
I mean, generally, when you're outside of conservation jurisdiction, anybody can go buy some Roundup. When you're inside, you generally require a licensed herbicide applicator to
Yeah.
do the work. And we'd certainly be open to that.
Okay, we could put that in as a condition.
Yeah, that's one of our standard
Okay.
ones.
All right. So without further ado, Bob, if you would.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we continue 1038 Main Street to the work session on February 2nd, 2022, for an order of conditions.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
and I vote aye.
Thank you much.
Thank you, Thad.
The next order of conditions is 146 Strong Island Road, Chris Dietrich, map 13M, parcel 42-C45. I'll have to double check on the SC number on this one. Removal and construction of a storage. Wait, nope, that's sorry. I started reading the wrong one. Removal of the existing single-family dwelling, septic system, hardscape, invasive plant species, removal, construction of a single-family dwelling, pool, hardscape, and septic. And this is John O'Reilly.
Mr. O'Reilly, are you with us?
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, there. Can you hear you?
Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry. Sorry, for the record, my name is John O'Reilly. I'm working with Chris Dietrich, who recently purchased the property on 146 Strong Island Road. Also on the call, I believe, is Andrew Garoulet, the landscape architect for the project. And I believe Eric Tolley, the project architect, is on the call as well. And Bill Riley is Mr. Dietrich's attorney, and I believe he's here as well. So I'm going to keep my presentation very short, trying to follow Thad's lead here. As the notice indicates, there's an existing single-family home, an attached deck, a paved driveway that's been constructed on the property, and Mr. Dietrich is looking to tear down and rebuild the property. So what we have for resources is a vegetated wetland to the rear of the property. Also land subject to coastal storm flowage. Did you want me to share my screen, or Nikki, do you have the plan? I don't know if you want to throw that up there or not, but I'll just continue.
I can do that for you.
Thank you. So we have a vegetated wetland to the rear, and that's been flagged up in the field and is shown on the site plan flags 1 through 11. We also have land subject to coastal storm flowage. The entire property is actually in 3 zones. We have a velocity zone, which is to the rear of the building, 2 AE zones. Base flood elevation of 1 is at 11, and base flood elevation of 12 is the other. The proposed home is actually within the AE zone, base flood elevation 11. But what we've done is we are looking to construct a new foundation, basically in the same footprint as the existing home. The foundation will be flood compliant with the necessary floodgates and flood vents to let the water come in and out. And as I said, we're having the top of foundation at elevation 13. So we are 2 feet above the flood elevation that the house is mapped in. We did do the area calculations, and you can see on the plan that we are showing a reduction of hardscape within the 0 to 50 foot buffer zone. The majority, if not all of this area or all of the reduction is a result of the removal of the paved driveway on the south side of the existing home. And what the architects have come up with is to currently the garage doors enter on the south side of the building. We're simply turning that so we'll have garage doors facing the road, and that allows us to bring the driveway directly in off the road, and we are able to restore almost all of that paved driveway that falls within the 50-foot buffer zone on the south side of the house. I'm going to leave a lot of the vegetation work to Andrew to describe, but we are showing 4 areas of mitigation. The first area is the actual lawn area that exists into the wetland line that we flagged, so that's looking to be naturalized. And then we're increasing the buffer to that BVW. At its narrowest is 5 feet, but you can see it grows to almost 15 feet on the southern side of the property, close to flag 6 and 7. So that's the second mitigation, is the increased buffer. There is quite a bit of invasive on the north side of the house where the pool is being proposed. So we are proposing to restore and mitigate the invasives within that area on the north side of the house around the proposed pool. So we do have a proposed pool and a patio on the north side of the house. We have shown the patio, retaining wall and pool just outside the 50-foot buffer, and all within the 50 to 100-foot buffer. We are controlling our runoff by 2 main drainage systems, one on either entrance to the driveway. That's taking care of, the 2 drainage systems are taking care of the proposed paved driveway to replace the existing paved driveway, as well as the roof runoff is going to be connected to it. So all our drainage system, all our surface areas are going to be controlled through subsurface drainage facilities. I do have some conservation notes on the plan, and I did have a narrative as part of my application. In essence, when you total up the 50 and 0 to 50 and the 50 to 100-foot hardscape and dwelling, we're looking to add a total of 1,666 of hardscape dwelling, and we are required to mitigate that at 2 to 1, which gives you a number of 2,132 square feet, and we're proposing just shy of 4,700 square feet of mitigation. I did receive an email from Nicole. She had asked about she had a question on our chart on page 7 of 8, and I went and looked at it, and I think I may have confused the commission, but I'll happy to answer that question if it comes up. But I should have broken out a number differently than I did on the chart, and I'll explain that when the time comes. But I don't know. I think it'd be a good time to have Andrew chime in and talk about the mitigation if that sounds good with the commission.
That sounds like a good idea.
Thank you.
Hello, Andrew Garrelay, registered landscape architect, Yarmouth Port Design Group. As John mentioned, there's a lot of change on the site with the reduction to the south of the driveway. Let's see. If you can scroll that so we can see the bottom a little bit. I'm going to start on the south end of the property. You can see that I try to identify the mitigation plants with a green color. You can see that I've got some trees going in where right now there's pavement. That whole area from the railroad track looking line, which is a limit of work line, that's all currently driveway. So that's all coming out. I have 4 trees going in there, and then that's to be seeded with a New England coastal seed mix. And the retaining wall that's there now is because we're elevating the house, and the driveway floor is coming up to elevation 12 and a half. The driveway has to be, we either have to make a big fill slope, which would be a sediment source and runoff problem. So rather than doing that, I have a retaining wall going along the side of the house to maintain the side of the driveway so we can control the runoff toward the street and then intercept it with the catch basins that John mentioned before. One of the things that always comes up on these houses, people are always looking for a generator. So I added a little notch in that retaining wall where a future generator pad could go that has to meet both the FEMA elevation and also the zoning setback from the lot lines. So that seemed like the most logical place so we don't have it floating out into the buffer zone. There are 3 little small saplings. There's a 4-inch Scotch pine, which is non-native, a 2-inch cedar, and a double 4-inch bayberry right at the rear corner of the garage. Yeah, I think Nicole's pointing it out right there. And I think because of construction that they're going to have to come out just for the construction access. There's some mitigation that I'll cover. There's other trees that I'm going to mention too that have to come out. Oh yeah, if we go toward the street in the driveway, there's unfortunately a triple cedar tree. You can see the little red X with the 3 dots right at the southern, toward the south, Nicole. In front of the garage at the street.
Right there.
You're gonna have to scroll. You're gonna have to scroll up. Yeah, right there you go. Yeah. Yeah. So in order to align the driveway to come in and go into that garage, that tree would have to be removed. Again, I'll cover the mitigation for that a little bit later. I want to go through the other trees as well before I get to that. And then out by the street, you can see a lot of green vegetation in there. Currently, it's mostly beach rose, Rosa rugosa, and a little bit of invasive stuff in there as well. There are a couple of varieties of junipers mixed in there. It's quite a bit of a mess, but the dominant thing is the beach rose. And then at that north end of the driveway, we have a driveway that comes in and goes across the front of the house. The septic system is going to be underneath it, so it was already going to get disturbed anyway. And if you went to the site, you might have noticed backing out of the driveway is a little bit hazardous because you have a blind, the driveway is blind to the south. So in order to try to ease that and also create some parking on the site, I have that horseshoe driveway in the front of the house. As I mentioned, goes over the septic system. And there is a tree at that north end close to where it meets the street. I'm sorry, Nicole, if you can scroll up on there we go. You'll see the red X there. That's not in the zoning setback. However, it is in the flood zone. So I think that does put it into your jurisdiction. To the right of that, you can see one of the drainage structures that's going to take the driveway runoff as well as the runoff from the pool area. I'll get to the pool in a second, but I just want to concentrate on the trees for a moment. You can see there's a large circle to the just above the swimming pool area near the lot line. I believe that's an apple tree. It might be a pear tree, but I believe it's apple. I saw it in the winter time. I had a hard time identifying it, but it has quite a broad crown. It does have some branches that are actually come down and touch the ground toward where the swimming pool is. So we'll have to remove a couple of big branches off of that, but the tree would be preserved. And then by the corner of the swimming pool, you'll see another red X, and then halfway down the swimming pool, you'll see another red X. Excuse me. And that's in the 50 to 100. One of them is a double cherry. It has a 4-inch branch and a 10-inch branch coming off. And then the other double cedar is 12-inch. Again, I have mitigation at the bottom of the plan. I have a mitigation chart that says what's being removed and the mitigation for it. So going into we're proposing 9 7 to 8 foot high cedar trees and the 3 2.5 to 3 inch caliper maples that you saw on the south side. That's in the 0 to 50 we're planning on planting. And then from the 50 to 100, we have another 7 to 8 foot cedars and another 2.5 to 3 inch caliper maple. And that's just for the tree removal to mitigate for that. I should go back now to describing the hardscape around the pool, and then we'll get to the main part of the mitigation after that. So one of the difficulties, of course, with this site is that it's so much of it's a wetland, and there's very little area to work with. And they wanted a swimming pool, so I had to do the best I could at working it in there. This area is partially lawn. A lot of it is honeysuckle. There's a few other invasives in there. There's a double olive tree. We're not taking out all of the trees that are existing in the 50-foot buffer. We're keeping there's a 12-inch cedar. There's a couple of bayberries in there as well. The double olive, of course, is going to be removed. But I figured since we're going to be doing the pool area, we might as well go into into the 0 to 50 and clean out all of the honeysuckle and junk that's in there, leaving, of course, those natives, and then replanting heavily with inkberry and bayberry and the eastern red cedars, and also creating that corridor along the property line of native plants. The swimming pool, it's not a huge swimming pool. It's 14 feet by 25 feet. The hardscape area around it is about 700 square feet, just enough so we can get some chaise lounges that you can see I put on there, and a little fire pit, area as well. This all has to be level, of course, so there's some retaining wall. Try to minimize that as much as I could, but that also helps with the runoff because it controls it. So we have around the perimeter of the hardscape, we're picking up the drainage that has to pitch away from the pool toward the house and toward the street. The area to the east is a very narrow area, and that is mostly at grade right there. I got to double check that. Yeah, and there's also a retaining wall just off of the house foundation. You can see there's a couple of steps that come from by the septic tank that come up to this area. And part of that, I'm sorry, it goes down to that area. Part of that is we have to maintain the air conditioning units in the swimming pool equipment has to be above the flood zone elevation. So there's a little wall there. It says TW, that's top of wall 12, right by the AC units. So that wall holds up the AC units and the swimming pool equipment to keep it out of the flood zone. And then it drops down to 3 feet down to the swimming pool area. The plants around it, I have some ornamentals. You'll see in my plant schedule. You've asked me several times lately to try to incorporate more native plants in, And I did this quite a bit, and I highlighted them in red in my ornamental plant schedule. And also the screening around the pool, it's all done in winterberry. I don't know if any of you have ever caught the hedge that I made down at the head of Oyster Pond across the street. You see all the orange berries in a hedge, and that's winterberry. That was a plan that I did several years ago. And it makes a very nice hedge and great food in the wintertime for the birds and other animals. So all of the hedges you see on this plan are winterberry and not privet. I do have a little bit of hydrangeas and things mixed around the pool area, and as noted in the plant schedule. So I think I've run my mouth quite a bit, so I'll let you ask some questions.
Okay, well, thank you for the thorough presentation, and
Okay.
always appreciated. I'll just open this up to commissioners. I don't see, no, there we go, Bob, you can go first.
Yes, thank you. The driveway, why is that asphalt and not more of a permeable surface?
Slope. We've got to go from the street at elevation 7 to the garage slab that's at elevation 12.5. So it's rather steep. So that's why that is. And it also, we have to keep it at the elevation between elevation 10 and 11 going over the septic system, and which causes the other end of the driveway also to have a slope that's fairly substantial.
Yeah, because the current driveway is pretty level, correct?
Yes.
Compared to the new one.
Yes.
Yes.
And the proposed patio, granite patio around the pool, is that going to be done with mortar, or is it going to be dry laid, or?
Usually around the pools, we like to do them as a wet laid because the edges of the stone can be a hazard underfoot, and that's why we have around the perimeter the channel drains to pick up the runoff. So it's very controlled runoff.
Okay, the existing vegetation on the south end of the proposed garage. You see that little area that you called out as existing vegetation?
I'm not sure where you are.
The south corner of the proposed garage.
Where I have the 3 X's?
Yeah, beyond that,
Yep.
It says existing vegetation.
Yes. Yep.
There's some sumac in there.
Yeah, there is. Yep. I saw staghorn sumac. Yep.
And that's going to remain.
It's going to remain outside of that, the work limit line. I have 2 work limit lines, one for the construction, and then I show another one for the planting. And that island of existing vegetation is going to be preserved where the 2-inch oak is.
Okay, and along the existing driveway, there's some cedar trees.
Yeah.
Well, what's going to happen to those?
They're outside the work limit line. The work limit line's right off the edge of the driveway.
Okay. So the cedar trees will remain.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's I think was it an oak? There's a big 20-inch oak over that way as well.
There's an oak down there too that's remaining.
Yep, and a triple oak that's right near the driveway as well.
Okay.
Yep.
And it looks like there's been some encroachment into the wetland with maybe a moat area.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's gonna come back to life eventually.
Yeah, Bob. So what my thought on that was, I started to put some plants into that area, and then I thought, well, it's a wetland, and then to be digging holes and disturbing it, and sometimes there's water there, and sometimes there isn't. I thought it best to just put that single rail fence in front of where I have the mitigation shown, plant just outside of the wetland, and let the other vegetation that's in the wetland just infill I don't think it's going to take long for that to regenerate into what should be there coming out of that wetland. There's a lot of that upper marsh shrub, or what's the name of it? I can't think of it. But there's a lot of very much obligate wetland plants growing outside of where it was mowed. So I think they're going to be right back in there in no time.
Okay.
Can
Are
I
you
ask,
planning
I'm sorry,
on,
Bob.
yeah,
Bob,
go ahead.
can I ask Nikki to sort of show us that area, if Nikki, if you know where that is, just so that we're.
Yep, which exact area did you want to see?
The part that Bob and Andrew were just talking about,
To the right of the fence line.
If you look at the site plan, flags 6 and 7 is one area.
Yeah.
And then flags 8, 9, and 10.
Yeah.
To the east of them is the other area.
There's a big paragraph with 2 arrows going from it.
okay.
And the plants up against the wetland, are you gonna be putting in like a seed mix around those plants?
Yeah, I think that, yeah, I don't think I called it out specifically, but or actually I do think I did up on the, maybe not. Yeah, it's existing grass right now. So I thought, to be honest with you, I'm thinking it was more to leave what's there and just plant right into the grass, and rather than stripping the grass out.
Okay.
What's your thought on that?
Yeah, is it pretty dense? I mean, the grass that's there, it's what's a kind of Cape Cod grass, huh?
Yeah, but there's a lot of moisture there, because we're right up against that wetland. The water sometimes comes right up to that wetland line, pretty close. So it's pretty moist in there, but it's definitely not a fertilized golf course type lawn.
Could you seed into the existing at all?
Yeah, it could be overseeded. I just don't think
Overseeded.
you'd want to strip it or anything, right?
Right, just maybe overseeded with something.
Yeah, I've got it labeled for the disturbed areas to be seeded with New England coastal seed mix on the back side of the house. So
Yeah.
that could be overseeded. Yeah.
And there's not going to be any irrigation here, correct?
None planned.
Okay, because that's
Certainly not for lawn. I don't know if they might want to do something for the shrubbery around the house, but probably not.
yes, that's something that we frown against now. Any new
Right.
irrigation, including fertilizers and pesticides.
Yeah, even the front yard has fescue grass rather than any Kentucky bluegrass or anything.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's nice that you're going to be removing those invasives along the north end.
Yeah.
And in front of the house by the road. I saw all the rugosa rose in there. So
Yeah.
that's a benefit.
Yeah, it's quite a mess. Yeah.
And the walkway in front of the house, is that going to be pervious?
That would be a dry laid.
Okay.
That would not be on a slab.
Okay. I think that's all I had for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Karen?
Have you considered at the bottom of the driveway, maybe putting something that would allow any water going down the driveway? I know you have the drains on both sides, but that would catch anything coming right down the driveway if there was anything, since
Yeah.
the driveway is paved.
Yeah, you can see the 2 catch basins in front of the garage right up against the property line. After that, we're outside of the property and we're in the street layout. So
Right.
I think that's something that we cannot do because it's in the street layout. It's not.
So the bottom of your driveway, somewhere toward the bottom of the driveway, physically within the driveway, you'll have something to catch any other water? Or you're assuming everything's going into those drainage that will take you to the catch basin.
Yeah, that's the idea. Of course, whatever rain comes on the other side of that is going to go toward the street. But I don't think we're allowed to put a catch basin in the street layout. I think we can only do it on our property. That's why they end there.
Yeah,
Could
that's
you
correct.
do it within your property part, right towards the bottom? Not in what you're not allowed, in the area you're not allowed, but something to catch, because it is asphalt, and I would bet, and maybe I'm incorrect, that not all this water will go into the drainage on the sides and get to that catch basin. So I was thinking if you could put something physically in the driveway.
One of the, Andrew, John O'Reilly here, with regards to the drainage. You can see on the southern driveway, we have those 2 drop inlets, basically catch basins that will serve as collectors for the water.
Right.
We could look at a trench drain. In fact, we did consider the trench drain, and we opted to go with these 2 smaller drop inlets. But it is something that we could probably accommodate. The only issue that we have, and that was one of the reasons that we opted for the 2 catch basins, is that the septic system is to the north of those 2 catch basins. It's directly in front of the house, and we need to have a certain setback from the leaching facility to a catch basin. So that's why we opted for the 2 single catch, the double catch basins, as opposed to bringing the catch basin all the way to the north, to the other side of the driveway.
All right, I was just thinking if you had something that was more pervious toward the bottom of the driveway rather than the asphalt, that would catch anything possibly that didn't get into your drainage ditches. Just a question.
Yeah. Unfortunately, once we get off the property, we're very limited in what we can do in the property as far as structure or so forth. So I can talk to Mr. Dietrich about putting a French drain in, which would certainly address, certainly cover your points that you're making.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Anyone else? Janet.
Thanks, Bob. I have questions for both Andrew and John. I'll start with John, if that's okay. I'm trying to understand the extent of the floodplain, and because these plans are so busy and there's so much going on, I'm having a hard time. But as I'm reading this, you are the screen porch. The eastern half of the screen porch is going to be in a VE zone.
That is correct. Yes.
Is it elevated?
Yes.
What is that? What is the elevation of that?
The elevation, the screen porch, I believe, will match the finished floor of the building, which would be 14.25. It's going to be up on piers.
Okay, so
would be flood compliant.
So, and the ground elevation at that point is about 12, is that right?
7.
No, the existing grade directly behind the house is around elevation 8, and then it drops down towards the wetland. Underneath the proposed screen porch, we have a spot grade shown at 7.1.
Okay, so I'm just visualizing at 14.25, how far above grade is that porch going to be sitting?
7 feet.
7 feet above, okay.
Yeah, one thing I did not say in my very brief opening comments is that, the existing foundation of the house is at 10.2. And we are elevating the foundation of to 13, which Andrew touched on at the grading coming up to the driveway is getting steeper. And that was the reason for that. And then the screen porch would be built into the finished floor area. So we are picking the structure up.
There was something, okay, I get that. So there was some statement in the narrative, and I can't find it at the moment, that made me question whether the design is completely FEMA compliant. Is it?
It's my understanding it is, but we can certainly, I mean, I don't know if Eric is on the call, but certainly would be, you know, we would need to show that to the building commissioner of the town that it is fully
Yeah.
compliant.
Okay. And so, and in terms of the pool and the patio, what will be the finished elevation? Are they going to be in the AE zone?
Elevation 9 is roughly that's the edge of the pool coping is elevation 9. So that's down close to existing grade. Or not, yeah, closer to existing grade. Well, existing grade there is between elevation 8 and elevation 7.
So that puts it into the AE zone.
The pool itself is in the zone,
Yes.
yeah, would have floodwater cover, yes.
Okay, so the pool and the patio are both going to be in the floodplain.
Correct.
Do you need, okay. Okay, we've been down that road a couple times, not easily. I'm gonna chew on that. And let me just go back one more time, because I've also, the third thing I was struggling with was and this one's for Andrew, counting the trees coming out. As I look at the landscape plan and count up the red X's and look at the chart at the bottom of the page, it seems to say 6. But when I read the narrative and take notes, it comes out to being more like 10. So maybe I'm double counting in the narrative. There's one reference to native trees and shrubs of 4-inch caliper within 10 feet of the building, but it doesn't specify which ones those are. Are those the 3 that are close to the building in the back there in the southeast corner?
Yeah, the southeast corner has a 4-inch Scotch pine, a 2-inch cedar. So the 2-inch cedar is not above 4 inches. And then a double 4-inch bayberry.
Yeah. Okay. So there, I have that separately listed. So I'm double counting that, is what you're saying.
Okay.
Okay. You have 4 mature cedar, it says, and 1 mature apple.
Yeah, the apple's not coming out. It's just going to have a major branch cut off.
Okay. So that's going to be trimmed.
Yes.
All right. And then 2 mature cedars at the driveway entrance is really, that's the triple cedar, is that right?
Yeah, there's the triple cedar at in front of the garage at that driveway entrance. And then the 12-inch cedar at the north end entrance.
Okay, so those are 2 separate. And then the 2 cedars in the pool patio.
Yeah, one cedar and 1 cherry in the pool patio area.
Okay. So the total is 6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, 6 above 4 inches. Yeah.
Okay.
Or that are native.
Okay. And then in terms of well, you've got 16 eastern red cedars going in, 4 red maples, so that's 20 right there. I do note that somewhere in the narrative that it references 24 native trees, but I think 16 and 4 is 20.
Oh, I think what happened was at one point I thought that apple tree. At first, I thought that apple tree because I was there in the winter and I was looking through other, actually in the fall, and I was looking through vegetation at the apple, and from a distance, I thought it was a choke cherry, and I thought it was going to come out, and I had where you see in the drip line of that maple tree, I had cedars going straight across there, and then I realized I could save that apple tree, and I switched it to a short segment of a winterberry hedge with inkberry on the other side of it. And I think that probably got counted off of an earlier plan that showed those cedars.
Okay.
That's probably why they messed it up in the narrative.
Okay, so our final numbers are 6 coming out and 20 going in.
Correct. Yeah.
All right.
So I have 7 red X's. There's
Yeah.
these 3,
Yeah, you're
4,
correct on that.
5, 6, 7.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
4, 5, 6,
7. Yeah, it is 7.
7. Ah,
Oh, I know why that is. One of them is not in those 2 zones, the 50, the 0 to 50 and the 50 to 100. It's just in the flood zone,
uh-huh.
but I think we have adequate
Still,
mitigation for
yeah,
it.
still have
But
20.
it didn't make the chart. That's why it didn't make the chart. I should have put it separately down there.
Yeah,
Oh, no, I
there-
did put it
There's a
separate.
reference, just flood zone, the double
Yep.
12-inch cedar,
Yep.
that's referenced, so. Yeah, where I ran into trouble, and it does, when you have double and triple trees, how many do you count? So it's just one tree.
Yes.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's all I have for now. I'm gonna mull over, another proposal for a pool and impervious hardscape in the flood zone. Generally opposed to that as a general matter. Doesn't seem, anyway, I will stop at that moment and let others pick that up.
So we'll come back to you, Janet.
Yep.
Just to pick up on the tree counts and all that, in the landscape plan, there's the tree restoration table at the bottom, and it says 7 trees coming out, and then the totals for the trees being put in seem to total up to 20, but it says equals 24. So it's just a little bit of it's just good to get all that.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Okay. Yeah.
I missed an edit. Yep, that should be 20.
Yeah, I don't really have. One thing I'll ask this. I appreciate the fact that you listened to some previous requests to put more natives in foundation plants, and you've done that, and that's good. Something else that we've been sort of gravitating towards recently is where, when you quote unquote mature trees are removed and replaced with, obviously not mature trees, especially in the cases where we have a lot of DBH coming out.
Yep.
Try to make sure that we're just not replacing a mature tree with a sapling over and over again.
Yeah, I was trying to balance biomass to some degree. So that's why I have so many 7 to 8 foot cedars. I mean, they're big cedars going in.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
But I just want to know if you'd ever counted up, I don't know, you ever sort of did a little back on the note calculation of how many DBHs are coming out versus how many going in. I mean, I think it's a good thing to know and to focus the mind, use to focus the mind, just so that we're.
I don't, it's been a while since I first did my first draft of this plan, but I was very aware of the amount of DBH that was coming out and was very concerned about it. And that's why I have such a high amount of the cedars in there, and also the maples on the south side of the property. Just trying to maximize the amount of biomass, and then of course, not that it matters that I had it in my mind coming out, and then I saw that I could save it, was that maple tree, not maple tree, apple tree. Yep, I was conscious of it. I don't know that I did an actual.
Yeah, but I agree that you probably intuitively, did it, because you do have a lot of trees going in.
Yeah, 7 to 8 foot has quite a, that's not a 1 inch cedar tree going in there. 7 to 8 footers is certainly 2, probably 3 inches.
Yeah.
Bob, it's Bill Riley.
Hello, Bill.
Just a comment on, if you insist on equal DBH for trees going out and trees going in, I think that's unfair for the property owner, because you end up with a complete forest because you have so many more trees to equal the DBH. So I understand the point, and it's certainly something that we should pay attention to, but we also don't want to turn every property into a total forest either.
Oh, well, that would be nice, actually, but no, I'm not.
Well,
I'm
that,
not.
that depends,
I was just about
that
to say,
depends on your point of view, Bob.
Thank you for the suggestion, Bill. We'll be sure to write that into our regs.
Well, I'll be sure to mention it next time we talk about it.
But anyway, no, I'm not suggesting, I don't mean to imply that we need to have a rigid DBH to DBH ratio, but in fact, we don't have it written into policies. We are talking about it. Really what I'm coming to is that when it's in the case where you have large trees, and I just want to try to avoid the situation where we're taking out large trees and replacing with thin trees. But I think in this particular case, we don't have an issue. So you can rest easy, Bill. I'm not going to bring, I'm not going to focus on that. I was just talking. I just was asking the innocent question. Did you ever look at the DBH ratio?
Oh, no. I understand. But there was, we used to use an expert, a guy named Don Shaw. I don't know if he's still working or not, but and he was on the Conservation Commission in Brewster and the Conservation Commission in Orleans, and a very knowledgeable guy. And when conversations turn like this, he would say, it's the Wetlands Protection Act, not the Tree Protection Act. Anyway, that was Don Shaw.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Bob.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Anyway, so I think by and large, I don't have any additional questions. I think it's actually an overall pretty good proposal. I understand Janet's concerns, and we'll be coming back to her momentarily. We've had pools be proposed where they're not pervious, and very often there's the rationale that for various rationales, and I understand them. We like in some cases they're proposed as pervious, and we love that. But anyway, Janet, are you since I'm about done, are you ready to have you done your thinking?
Yeah, we have had pools and we have had a few impervious pool patios, but they've largely been in the outer aura, not in the floodplain. And I just don't know how you meet performance standards for land subject to coastal storm flowage with a pool and an impervious patio. It does reduce the ability of the land to buffer inland areas. It reduces the ability of the land to absorb and contain floodwaters. There's some wall structures here that could possibly divert. So, I mean, on a number of the different performance standards for the coastal floodplain, I don't see how you meet it. And that's my problem.
Well, Mr. Chair, I think that, the first place, I thought that the 5200 is the outer aura. And the one reason why this isn't a problem in the first place, we're talking about stormwater flowage, which means here in Chatham, it's a tidal issue. So it comes in with the tide and goes out with the tide. So I think a concern about the ability of the property to absorb flood waters is not entirely appropriate in a tidal setting, as opposed to if you had a property that was a well, that water, like 68 Shell Drive, you can see where that would be a concern. But here, the water's going to flow over this, and when the tide goes out, the water's going to go out. And I don't, I don't think there's any real interference with the flood water. So I appreciate Jan's concern, but we also have a kind of a safety concern too for the people who are using the amenity.
I hear you about the tide, Bill, but I'm just noting that is the first performance standard in land subject to coastal storm flowage. So I again can't get past that.
If we were to make that not on a slab without mortar, that would change your heart on that?
Well, I mean, there's other options. We've had people doing decking around a pool that allows for some of the water to go between the planks. We've had pervious pavers around pools. We've had different things that are not wet laid, where it becomes a complete barrier, and the water's got to go somewhere else because it can't be absorbed by the land there.
That's gonna go into the pool, Janet.
Yeah, you might.
It's
Until
the
it
same
fills
with a
up.
driveway in a flood zone. It, there's every house in this whole, that whole area is all flood zone, all salt. I can't remember the name of it. Old Salt something road.
Yeah, hasn't it been known to actually flood from time to time?
Oh yes, but there's
Yep.
there's swimming pools all on that road, and they're all in the flood zone. I can think of Spencer and another one begins with a W. I can't remember the name, but most of those houses have swimming pools, and they are in the flood zone.
One of the, John O'Reilly, again, through the chair, and one of the things I was looking at with regards to the pool, I figured this would be a topic of conversation in the floodplain. I kind of looked at this as, it's a already altered site where you have a house that is sitting in the flood zone that has no flood requirements and no flood events or anything like that. So what we are doing is we're removing that obstacle and putting in basically the same size house that has a flood compliant foundation underneath it. So we're not impacting the floodwaters any further with regards to the existing home by the new foundation. And I looked at the pool, when you couple it with the amount of mitigation that's being proposed, I think the performance standard could be met in that light, that you are improving the current foundation situation in the flood zone, and you're not worsening it with just proposing a pool while a flood compliant foundation is being built. That's how I approached it.
I see the trade-off that you're mentioning, but I'm still stuck a little bit on your replacing vegetation. Granted, a good part of it is invasive, but nonetheless, from a flood control point of view, it's vegetation with impervious hardscape. So the fact that you have a FEMA compliant foundation is it's a FEMA issue. So the flood water goes through the foundation, but there's no difference from ability of the land to absorb flood water for that. So that's the same. So
I didn't say there'd be not another side of the argument, but that's how I looked at the proposal of the pool and the floodplain.
If I could be heard briefly.
Briefly, Bill. Yeah, we're actually sort of having to think about moving along here.
Well, I'm in favor of that. Anyway, I think to the point I made to Janet earlier, and we're talking about tidal floods, and I think there's a practical aspect that I would like Janet to consider, and that is, we're talking about a tide cycle 3 or 4 hours, and really, is there any absorption going on? And most of the floods that occur in this area, candidly, occur in winter gales from the northeast. And so when the ground is frozen in any event. So I think I understand. I understand, you can't ignore the words, but I think you have to balance the practicality against, or the phrase against the reality of what's going to happen when a flood does occur. But that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Bob, I thought you had your hand up. It looks like it went down. So
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, Bob, that I don't think it's a big deal to take the mortar out and to just lay the pavers, on the dry base. Or like Janet mentioned, put wooden decking around it. I don't think that's a lot to ask at this point, considering the whole project. That's all I had. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Bill Riley again. What I would suggest is give us an opportunity to consult with the property owner, Chris Dietrich. And, if we're at the beginning of the month, if we just go to the next meeting with the idea that we'll come back with a proposal that would hopefully resolve Janet's concerns. That way we can still meet the February work session.
Sounds fine to me. Andrew, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention the pervious pavers, I think is a viable option on this, some kind of pervious material. I don't think the deck is, because I think the deck would go toward lot coverage, which is not
No, it
your
doesn't.
jurisdiction. It doesn't?
Lot
Okay,
coverage, only roofed areas go to lot coverage.
okay. Yeah, some of the other towns, it's also decking, so thank you.
But we do have setbacks to a deck that we would need to, I think we can talk to Mr. Dietrich about it and come up with a proposal.
Yeah, good.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean, John.
Yeah.
All right, so we're looking at a continuance here to primarily discuss the concern about lands water absorption in the flood zone for the pool.
Yep.
Great.
All right.
Thank you very much.
So
All right.
Bob, if you would
Thank
mind
you.
to do it. Thank you. Would you mind making a motion for us?
And when is the next hearing?
The 26th.
That's, yes, correct. January
Okay.
26th.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion that we continue 146 Strong Island Road to February 26, 2022.
No, January.
Oh, I'm sorry, January 26, 2022.
Not February
Last
yet.
second.
Roll call vote. Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
I vote aye. It is, we are continued.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
I'd like to propose that we take a little break, Bob, if we could.
Sure. Let's 6.5, maybe 7-minute break. Make it to 3:30.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Chen Lei Ting, we are, if you hear us, we are proposing to come back at 3:30.
I'll see you then. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, Nikki, I forgot to ask if you're here.
Yes, I am
Yeah,
here.
yeah, there we go. So I guess we're ready for the next one.
All right, the next one is 74 Harborview Road, Bruce and Nancy Pearson, map 8A, parcel H4, SE 10-3529, construction of a garage addition and new driveway.
Good afternoon, Paul Muldoon here, Muldoon Architects, representing Bruce and Nancy Pearson at 74 Harborview Road. This was a continuance from the last hearing, and in that hearing we talked very specifically about the planting area on the lower right-hand corner, the southern eastern corner of the property. If you could flip to 1.1, please, Nikki. This area here initially had stretched much further north along the property line. It had a few species of plantings selected that were representing a taller shrub, and along with other conversations we had with the commission, we've made concessions on a number of things here. So the changes include removing the winterberry and viburnum that were proposed closer to the northward on the property line. We've since taken the planting bed and pulled the majority of it down southerly and westerly across the top of Coastal Bank, integrating the new planting area into the existing coastal vegetation. We've had a number of conversations with neighboring property owners, and we felt like we've had good continuity and discussion points to help protect the view for all involved here. And believe me, the Pearsons' importance of the view here is of the utmost importance to them, to ensure that their view is saved and clear. And this is the neighborly opportunity for us to continue that, so that the neighbors across the way and direct abutters are not impaired by any particular planting specification in view. With that, through that conversation, we've talked about what replaces the winterberry and the viburnum. We have a couple more Carolina rose. We've added a few more aster, New York aster, and a few more black-eyed Susans into the mix. And with that, we've offered to maintain those plants. The new plantings will be maintained, and the heights will not surpass the coastal bank vegetated growth or block any current views, as a way to put it into words, the conversations that we've had. Other things we've added are a metal edge around the planting areas, as a typical addition to all new planting areas. We assume we will have above ground irrigation for a short period of time while these plantings take hold. And with that, I'd like to take your questions.
All right, thank you. Questions from any commissioner? I think that it was Bob who was, yeah, here we go, Bob. I think you were focused on the shape of the planting bed and so forth, so go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's an improvement. Is there going to be on the south end, close to the coastal bank? I believe that's some invasive vegetation in there along the coastal bank. Are you going to have like a mow strip in there to maintain that the new plantings?
We weren't anticipating that. I don't think that would be an issue to get a push mower through there if we need to slightly adjust the planting bed location northward slightly.
Yeah, that would be great, I think. And I think that one of the code has a typo in it. On the plant schedule, it says CAR, Rosa Carolina. And then on the diagram, it says CAS.
Correct. My apologies.
Okay, no problem. But I just see those two. I just see those two corrections. That's all. Otherwise, it looks good as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Janet? You're muted. There you go. Still muted, Janet. You are muted.
I am
Oh, you got it,
muted.
okay.
Longer. Okay. Not a question, just a comment to say I appreciate how you moved the mitigation area, at least partially along the top of the coastal bank to form a bit of a VPS there. It's a much better location than what you had before. So appreciate the effort that you made for doing that. Thanks.
Anyone else? I don't have anything additional. I echo Janet's comments, and it looks like so I guess you will submit as a minor change.
As a neighbor, this is Chris Ely calling.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead.
That's fine. Thing. We very much, the Goslins, and we very much appreciate all of our discussions that we've had with Mr. Muldoon and working out the issues with the landscape planting heights and locations, and we very much appreciate the cooperation and the kind relationship that we've established. And Paul did mention the wording that he had agreed on with Mr. Chuck Goslin this morning. It was quoted to you just a little while ago, but the thought was between Chuck and Paul, I believe, that would be a condition that would be noted in the on your records. And what I believe Paul just stated was, but I'll read it a little more slowly, and Paul can correct me if I'm wrong, that the planting heights will not surpass the current coastal bank vegetated growth or block any current views. And so that would be great to have that in the record and as a condition for this fine project. Maybe Chuck Goslin is on the phone too. He can correct me if I've misstated what he and Paul had talked about earlier.
May I?
Maybe.
It would seem that if we write it into the language, it should be something that's objectively verifiable in the future. In other words, no higher than X feet.
Yes, so I was just about to say it either needs to be a certain, I mean, generally we want an undulating mass of vegetation. So like 3 to 9 feet, 3 to 6 feet, 6 to 9 feet, something along those lines. So I would want to verify a specific height that both parties are okay with before I put it into an order of conditions, mostly because not that I don't care about like the neighbor's feelings, but conservation wise, height of vegetation isn't our concern. So to incorporate view issues with neighbors, I would want to have some specific foot heightage that everybody is happy with.
All right, Mr. Muldoon, you have are you have your hand up at this point?
Yes, please, if I may, through the conversations in regards to plant specification and plant height, we talked about a 4-foot height as sort of the max amount. For instance, during our site visit with Mr. Ely, we placed a piece of plywood horizontally about where the steel edging note is and talked about what that means in regards to the views over that piece of plywood and then over the coastal vegetation. Mr. Ely and Mr. Goslin, correct me if I'm wrong, we talked about 4 feet as sort of the max height that we want, and we feel like that would conform very well to the plants specified.
I said that speaking for Ely, I think that would be correct. I'm not sure. Chuck Goslin, are you on board with that? Sorry. But as far as the Elys are concerned, that would be satisfactory.
All right, so there's going to be, is there going to be some sort of permanent marker out there that says this is the height that vegetation goes?
Oh, I would think that if it's written into the order that everyone can go back to that if they need to.
Sure.
So we're saying approximately 4 feet.
Yeah.
Sorry, from a neighbor's standpoint, that would be absolutely fine.
All right, that sounds good to me then.
Right. We will add that into the language. And there were just a couple of minor changes that we'll see. Something about, I remember, did the revised materials that you had provided, did they mention the metal edging that we just talked about?
So it appears we have one typo for the Carolina Rose arrow pointed. And we're going to add a mow strip between the
right.
planting and the top of coastal vegetation.
Yes. So those are minor changes. We can go ahead and I think and schedule for the next or a work session to be determined while you can submit those in advance of that.
I'll have them in tomorrow.
Very good.
Okay, we're ready for a motion, Bob?
I believe we are.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we continue 74 Harbor View Road to the work session on February 2nd, 2022 for an order of conditions.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Thank all of you, and
take care.
All right, the next one is the 367477 Sears Road, Patrick Brogan and Patricia Black, map 11A, parcel 5-10 and 310B and 411, SE 10-3522. This is the demolition of a single family dwelling and construction of a pool and associated accessory dwellings.
Mr. Chairman, Mike Ford here for the applicant. I know this was continued for Nikki to look into past orders of conditions and make sure that the commission was aware of all of the conditions that are in play, in as much as the order we're seeking covers 2 lots now, and to look into lot 36 and confirm that indeed the requirements for the work that had been done on lot 36 had been met. And so I'll let Nikki speak to that, although we did go back and certainly confirm that there was a certificate of compliance issued for the orders on that particular property, as well as a consent decree that was issued from the Attorney General's office on behalf of the state with respect to any violations that had occurred on 36, which had been sent to the commission and recorded at the Registry of Deeds. So before you get to that, I wanted to just kind of remind the commission that what is really happening on this lot with this proposal is that over 7,549 square feet of building that are on this site are being reduced voluntarily by the new owner to 2,884 square feet. And so the building coverage on this site is going from almost 12% down to 5.2%. And the guest house that's being demolished and removed is not in your jurisdiction, but except for perhaps a little point of it, is in the outer 50, and the pool that's being removed is in the outer 50. There is a lot going on with respect to the very large house that is in your jurisdiction, and a substantial portion of which is in the 0 to 50. And that house, which is currently over 34 feet high, is being deconstructed, and a much smaller structure is being constructed there, only 15 feet high. And there is a reduction in the 0 to 50. And so there is a tennis court proposed, and that's in the outer aura, that's in the 50 to 100. But I kind of wanted to just remind everybody where this particular property owner is going with this particular lot as we begin to move forward, hopefully, and come to a conclusion on this one. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Sean Riley.
Great, thank you, Mike. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Sean Riley, Coastal Engineering, representing the applicant. As Mike stated, we've been working with Nikki to compile the history of the three properties, 74, 77, and 36, and to confirm the COCs for from the state and from the town for 36. We've also compiled all of the conditions that are within that open orders for 74 and 77 into a single Word document. We've sent that over to Nikki to review. A lot of those are still warranted to be transferred over to the new and compiled into the new conditions. And we've made ourselves available for any questions that Nikki may have with those questions or any new special conditions. There were some questions about the irrigation. There are several conditions that are within the orders of conditions that will be transferred over for no new irrigation. We have since provided you with a updated planting plan based on the discussions we had for additional tree requirements. So you'll see on that revised plan that we submitted, those additional trees have been included within that planting plan. And lastly, we researched, there were some questions about where the coastal bank was, the mitigation, the buffers that were provided as part of the previous owner's project to build what you're seeing here, the large house in red, and the mitigation that was required for that project. There was over 20,000 square feet of new plantings planted. What you're seeing here in the magenta is the location of the top of coastal bank based on the prior flood zone, which was elevation 9. It was an AE zone. And the green, the darker green, were the areas of mitigation of the new mitigation plantings. And looking through that project and where things were built, where the plants were built, that stone line that you see out on the ground out there was installed as a demarcation of the limit of mitigation to prevent any further encroachment into the mitigation. And as I said, the green was what was proposed on that plan. The actual mitigation planting was planted 7 feet closer to the house than was required within that. So you'll see on our site plan that we show, where the deck is to the top of coastal bank, which also coincides coincidentally to the limit of the mitigation and where that stone line is. So rather than being 31 feet from the mitigation being 31 feet from that deck, it actually got installed to 24 feet. So somehow they got an additional 7 feet of vegetated buffer within that area. So you can see the top of coastal bank. There was a buffer strip that was installed as part of that prior project to give you a buffer between the top of coastal bank. So this jumps over to the proposed project. You can see the magenta is the prior top of coastal bank based on elevation 9 being the AE zone. With the advent of the new maps in 2014, that coastal bank has essentially moved up to the elevation 13 contour, which is that new orange line that corresponds with the top of coastal bank that you're seeing on our site plan. So this is the new top of coastal bank. The older one was down in here. I've just highlighted those items in color so you can see it more clearly. But you can see that there was a considerable buffer added. As Mike alluded to, the house, this is the footprint of the existing house. You can see in green that we're deconstructing it down to a much smaller size. All of these areas in red are coming out of the 0 to 50 and the 50 to 100. The driveway is to be relocated completely out of the 0 to 50 to this back area, and it's to be a pervious gravel driveway rather than a paved driveway. And for those reasons, it didn't make sense for us to propose any additional buffer or any additional vegetation for this deconstruction and reduction of work. So I believe Seth Wilkinson is on the line as well.
Thank you, Sean. I'm here. Is my audio okay?
Yes, it is.
Great. You summarized things well. We added the additional oak trees as requested, so there would be a 2-to-1 replacement ratio for the trees. We also added a note at the request of the commission regarding the demarcation of the mitigation areas on site. That's essentially a continuation of what's already there on 33, and that would be carried over to 77 as well. And I don't want to belabor the point on the mitigation that was discussed last time, but I think I would say that in the decades I've been doing this, it's important to note that, really think about the term mitigation. To require mitigation, there has to be something to mitigate for. And when there's a net reduction, shrinking of buildings, pulling things out of the NDZ, I just can't see what we would be mitigating for. I mean, technically speaking, the mitigation for a reduction would be more development. And I don't mean to, be a wise guy in saying that, but that would technically be the mitigation. And that's not what we're proposing. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, well, thank you, gentlemen. So we have two general swaths that we're dealing with here. One is the appropriate consolidation of previous submissions for both this property and the adjoining 74 and 76. And that is something that I guess Nikki can speak to, because I think you have been hopefully working your way through what they provided and going through your own papers and trying to find out whether anything was missed. But the other issue is the proposed changes for the subject property itself. There is the reduction of the house. There's also the addition of the tennis court in the back, primarily. So why don't we talk first, Nikki, if you're agreeable, about your assessment so far of the consolidation.
Yep. So I greatly appreciate the information that Coastal has provided, and I do not see necessarily any issues with it. There was, I believe, Sean, you said something about trees maybe needed to be addressed, tree removal.
There was, yeah, so no, it's the addition of trees that there were trees that are being removed that we discussed at the last meeting that the commission didn't feel was enough. So we've added on that revised planting plan, we've added several trees on that revised plan to the previous trees that we were adding.
So on that note, I may be at a disadvantage here. I'm one of the two digital people here, and Nikki, I don't see in Dropbox a revised planning plan.
That is, Sean, did that get? I don't believe I have that one either.
Okay.
Was that a Wilkinson plan?
That was the Wilkinson plan. Yeah, the one that Jeremy, that you provided to Carla last week.
That's correct.
Yes.
So I believe that in hard copies should have been dropped off as well. If not, I think it's something that if it's stuck in the mail or wherever it is, it did address those additional trees that you requested at the last hearing.
Okay, just while we're talking about those in the commission who get paper copies, do any of you have it?
Yes,
Okay.
I did get the paper copy, the Wilkinson one.
Yes, correct.
Revised planting plan, yeah.
Yeah,
What's the date on that?
and it is dated January 4th.
Okay,
Oh,
Does
I
sound-
did not.
you did not, okay.
It was in the Dropbox. I don't.
Oh, it may have gone in the Dropbox after I left town, because the most recent I have is December 8th.
Okay. Well, but it does
Okay.
exist. I have
It
it.
does exist, all right.
Thank you.
In partially
I'm
at
just
least.
emailing it to Nikki right now, just to make sure.
Okay.
At least she's got it.
And I will forward it immediately after I get it from Wilkinson.
Seth, do you want to, or Jeremy, do you want to share your screen? And then we could bring it up.
Sure.
Yes, I can do that right now. Just to be sure everybody is seeing.
We are. You want to just point out those additional?
Absolutely. Let me zoom in. In this area where we originally had 3 swamp white oaks, we now have 6 to get us to the 2-to-1 mitigation ratio that was requested.
Yep.
Okay, is that the essential change to the plan?
That and then the note that was requested about the symbolic boundary of the mitigation.
I'm sorry, would you say that again? I did.
The notes were updated.
Oh, I see. Okay.
To include the markers for the delineation of the mitigation area, similar to what we have over with the stone markers on 36 for the new mitigation on 74, 77.
Okay.
I should have, this is Mike Ford, Mr. Chairman, I should have updated the commission as well that we have filed with the Zoning Board of Appeals because even though we're in essence deconstructing that large house, it is in their jurisdiction in the Conservancy District, so the alterations trigger the need for a special permit. And we have filed and we're on for January 27th. The lot line that's being revised between the 2 lots, the common lot line, has already gone to the planning board and they have endorsed that. So the configuration of lot 36 and 77 as shown on this plan has now been authorized by an endorsed A&R plan, which will be incorporated into the special permit. So we've moved forward with all other permits that we need, just so the commission is aware.
Okay. So looking back through my notes, it requests for changes that we made last time, and there you've done that with the 6 oaks. If anybody else has notes on what else we asked for, I know I talked about the vegetative buffer strip, and I guess you've addressed that in a way.
Right. You asked for the demarcation note on the mitigation. That is indicated that's now on the plans.
Yes, very good. Bob was talking about, and I guess I'll leave it up to Bob to say what he said before. Anyone else have any questions at this point? Or Bob, go ahead if you want to. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna address the tennis court, the new tennis court. And how does that drain?
Sean, is that something you could address? Sean still on?
Sean, if you're talking, you might be muted.
Yeah.
Where is Sean?
I'm back.
Okay.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. For some reason.
So Sean, the question to you is from Commissioner Delvecchio, explain the drainage for the new tennis court. How does it drain?
Yeah, essentially it just sheets off into the lawn areas and then infiltrates down in through the lawn areas. There is a, a low area on the adjacent property that would just funnel through and then filter out to the ocean. There wouldn't be any contaminants or anything that would need to be treated, similar to a driveway where you'd have some sort of a catch basin or infiltration treatment for any of the petroleum that would be on a driveway surface. There really isn't anything. It's like the water that comes off of a roof with its cleanliness. So
Right.
if there was any concern, we've added drip strips along the downstream edge and then just infiltrated it that way if that's a concern.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention that it's right up against the NDZ. Is there any way it can be shifted a few feet away?
Yeah, so that the NDZ right now consists of lawn in that area. So we could add, we add a stone drip strip similar to that you add to the roof edge of a house that we could then just infiltrate down into the sand layer that's down below the lawn area. And then that would address any runoff.
Okay, that would be fine.
Yep, that's
Thank
easy
you.
enough.
Is that it for you, Bob?
That's it for me. Thank you.
Okay. Mary, is your hand up anew?
Yes, I
Okay.
just wanted to say quickly for the benefit of anybody that doesn't have the actual plan, they did add in the notes, at least the two things that were raised at the last one in terms of that they are going to have the removal of the temporary irrigation and everything's going to be hand weeded, selected herbicide, and they do have the indications in terms of, I think what Bob was talking about before, in terms of having the demarcation of the area. So at least to me, they have everything on the plans and included in the notes on the plans. So I appreciate that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Janet?
Am I muted? No. Quick question for Sean. I can't tell, is the site plan been revised as well, or it was just the Wilkinson plan? The date I have of the last site plan is December the 7th. Is that the final one?
We'll submit a week before. We'll submit a new revised plan with that drip strip that I just spoke about along the edge of the tennis court, the gravel strip. So you will get one further revision, but you do have the current plan right now.
Okay, thank you.
Is that all? It's all for you, Janet?
That's it. Yep.
Okay. Mary, is that a new hand? No.
Sorry, that was a mistake.
An old hand. All right. So I am not hearing anything that is going to cause us to ask for anything substantially new or changed as opposed to what has been provided in documents that I have not literally seen yet, but I hope to soon. And I see that they're in my inbox now. And just some minor changes that we just discussed. And if anyone has a different view of it, let me know right now. And I don't hear anything. So, and Nikki, you're saying that we're all square in terms of the consolidation.
Yeah, I think so. I haven't seen any glaring issues. Janet is the one that is volunteering to take over this order of conditions. So I think it's just between her, myself, and I guess Sean and Seth Wilkinson. to make sure that we all agree that everything aligns, but I'm not seeing any major issues.
And if something does pop up, I assume you can get a hold of the team and ask them offline.
Correct.
Yep.
And we can share the compiled, to simplify things, Janet, we've compiled all of the special conditions in a Word doc that you can just
I
utilize.
saw that. Nikki sent that already. That's thank you a million times for that. That makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
Thank you, Janet and Nikki, for taking this on.
And thank Carla, because I know she did it.
Will do.
This is all about regulatory economy, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, okay. Write that one down. All right, so I guess we're ready for, or are we ready for, Nikki, you tell me whether or not from your perspective, are we ready to move to the next work session or not?
Yes, I would say so.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we continue 3674 and 77 Sears Road to the work session on February 2nd, 2022 for an order of conditions.
Latin second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, roll call vote. I'm sorry. Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
And I vote aye. And that is approved. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
All right, so that ends our public hearings. We do have the September 23rd, 2020 minutes to vote on. Those were the ones that somehow ended up being half done when they got into Dropbox in December. But they should have been all updated at this point. We are not doing April 28th because I had that same issue again. We have an auto save issue between Teams and Crystal and I's computers linking up. So sometimes she saves something and it doesn't actually get uploaded to Teams in the right way. So I had the proper hard copy for April 28th, but not the digital one. But September 23rd, 2020 is all set to vote on if anyone had any comments.
2020. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, there was like 3 random meetings from well before I started that had not been voted on for some reason. So we're just catching up on those.
Okay. Anybody have anything? I don't think I had anything substantive. Well then.
Make a motion to approve the minutes for September 23rd, 2020.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
All right, and then first thing in the morning, hopefully, you will get the annual report draft that needs to be submitted by the end of the week. I'm just waiting for Paul's land management report. So if anybody has anything that they can think of off the top of their head that they want to add to it, just let me know. But basically, it's just the typical, we had these many permits, this is how much money we made, that kind of thing. So, yeah.
So when we receive it, we just, if you have any comments, just email them back to you. You have a deadline of Friday for Bob Duncanson. Is that what I understand?
Correct.
Okay, because the report itself is due at the end of the month, I believe.
Yeah, I think Jill asked for it by January 31st.
Yeah.
But Bob wanted it by the end of the week.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any other new business?
I just had a question, Bob.
Okay.
for Nikki. Will that be emailed to us? Or is it gonna be in the Dropbox, Nikki?
Nope, I will email it out.
Okay, thank you. Just a little bit more convenient, that's all.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Well, we made it. It went a little longer than I expected, but we made it.
Squeaking in under the deadline.
Why?
Thank God we
You
didn't go.
can never
over.
tell. You can never
Yeah.
tell. All right, Bob, take us home if you wouldn't mind.
Okay.
Even though we're already home.
I'd like to move to adjourn.
Latin second.
There's a second from not home, but somewhere.
Yeah. Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida.
Okay.
Where the sun is shining, I can see.
Where it is warmer than it is
Yes.
here.
Yeah, well, we haven't
Quite a
seen the
bit.
sun in weeks.
So we'll take a roll call vote on that. Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Hi.
Mary,
Aye.
and I'll go along with an aye.
Okay, everybody.